welcome back, Emma Willmann.
Oh, Emma. You're Emma.
Here we go. Let's get crazy.
Oh, Emma.
Like, my attitude fluctuates. Because if I'm in the middle of working on something and you're trying to talk to me, I will literally look at you like with the only like death stare of like, can you please shut the hell up? Like, I'm clearly, I have headphones on, I'm trying to do something and you're talking to me. Or he'll be telling a story and I'm just like, I do one of these, like, hurry up, let's go.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Get to the point of what you're saying.
Trying to see if you can see me okay. Yeah. There's a light is still weird in here. I love your background.
Thanks. Maybe, it's because I'm in an Airbnb and it's a mess.
You know, maybe I should do a background because it'll make it easier to see me, hopefully.
Oh, that light looks good like that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want it to be bad. I don't want it to be so bad.
Man. Isn't this crazy?
It's nuts.
It's nuts. Who would have thought?
Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thought?
Where we're at right now. I just did a show in Astoria Park. Like,
oh, you did? How was it?
It was good.
Good.
But you know, I was talking to James earlier today, and I was like, this feels like when I first started comedy. Like, I have a show at a pizzeria this week. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I'll do a show anywhere.
Yeah, totally. And then the setup, like, it's like if it has. I mean, the one I did in the park didn't have a mic, and that was tough.
Oh, God, no. Yeah.
That was tough. That's about where I'm going to start drawing the line. Like, I was like, I don't need it quite that bad if there's no mic, but I'll do anything.
No mic. We had a mic for the show, but it was bassy, but it was a mic.
Right. You need something, because I was like, I'm not tuned up enough to do this with no.
Like,
Yeah.
Over kids in the background, dogs.
Kids, I know, and I feel uncomfortable with kids. I was like, I feel kind of rude. Like, I don't want to interrupt. I don't want someone who doesn't want to be at a comedy show to have to listen to me.
Well, yeah, it's all about what they want their kids to hear.
Right.
What comic is saying what. Like, I mean, there was a lady at the show I did who had her, like, I mean, the baby must have been maybe a year old. And I'm like, and she's just sitting there with her baby, and I'm like, I know the baby don't understand shit, and clearly, like, you guys are cool with it, but
yeah, I don't want to be the one. He's getting these subconscious memories in therapy. Like, I don't know where I heard this, but
exactly when he's talking to his therapist, like, I remember being in the park and we were playing, and there was a woman, and she spoke foul language.
The therapist is like, "You're crazy. You're hallucinating. There's no way that happened." Comedy show in the park.
Comedy show in the park. Was this in 2020? Is that when you were a baby? Oh yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna do an intro for you. Okay, today I'm talking to comedian, actress, and writer. She's been a stand-up comic since the age of 17, when her mother entered her and her twin sister into a comedy competition. Her first one-hour special was produced by Mr. Fluffy himself, Gabriel Iglesias. First and only winner of NBC's Stand Up for Diversity Showcase, and her most recent special, The Floor is Lava, is on Amazon Prime. You've got two specials on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Gina Brillion.
Thank you. The Zoom crowd goes wild.
Did I said the name? I said your last name right?
Yeah, you did. You nailed it.
Man, you know, it's like sometimes, because what it is if I watch, like when I was watching interviews, when other people would introduce you, then they'd be like, am I saying it right? And then all of a sudden that made me self-conscious about how I was saying it.
Yeah.
That's how I said it. But then they were like, oh, did I do it right? And then I was like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you did it. You nailed it. You did a good job.
Oh, praise Lord.
Some people just omit the double L's.
What do they say? Brillion?
Brillon. I'm like, there's two L's in there. It's Brillon if you can't roll your L's. Like, just...
Brillon.
Yeah. My husband actually was saying it like that for the longest time until his mom corrected him and was like, you're saying your wife's name wrong.
His mom, Gina's husband, is from the Midwest too, so his mom knew it more than he did.
She's like, there's double L's in there. I know how to pronounce Latino things.
And Gina also gave birth in quarantine.
I did. How crazy.
How crazy.
Whole ass baby. He is in the back. I can hear him crying a little bit, but
how was giving birth?
Oh, it was awful.
Really?
The delivery, I want to sue the crap out of the doctor. The delivery was awful because of the doctor.
Really? Had you met the doctor first?
No. So it was a crazy story because like I went to the hospital and the doctor that I've been seeing throughout my whole pregnancy doesn't deliver anymore. So that was a
Okay.
information I wasn't given. So I show up and I'm like, look, well, this baby is coming. So who's on call from, the place that I've been working with?
Right.
So they call this guy in and he's been on call for like almost 2 days straight. So he's already in a mood. And I'm very sympathetic towards anybody who works in the hospital, especially
Sure.
like, I have a lot of sympathy. I have a lot of empathy. Like I can't imagine what it was like. So when he came in tired, I was like, dude, I get it. You've been working nonstop. There's a pandemic. Like I can't imagine the pressure you're under. But when I tell you this man was an unbearable jerk the entire time, like he wanted this over with. He clearly did not want to have a patient that he hadn't been seeing throughout her whole pregnancy. I told him I had a birth plan. He was like, well, we'll give you a birth plan. Like that was his response.
Also, this is not the time for your empathy to need to kick in. I feel there's probably like, certain key times in someone's life where it's like, even if you're extremely empathetic, you don't necessarily want to be tapping into that when you're at such a vulnerable moment of giving birth.
Yeah, when you're like, hey, I'm gonna have this baby, so if we could put your stuff on the shelf for right now,
Right.
if we could just shelve that for right now, we
Yeah.
can talk after.
Like
after
you shouldn't even know that he's tired. Like that shouldn't even be in you're just trying to think like what's about to happen with my body. You shouldn't be like,
I've been working since yesterday and I'm gonna go take a rest for a little bit. Basically told me he was gonna take a nap. And I was like, okay, cool. I want you refreshed. Go ahead, do what you gotta do.
right.
He wanted to give me something to speed up the delivery. And I was like, but like, are you looking at my contractions? I'm like, I'm pretty close, bro. I don't think we need anything up. Like,
also, it's like, is that connected to the fucking fact that you want to get out of here or that we should be doing this? He's
100%
Yeah.
was connected to that. 100%. And then during the delivery, I didn't want to be on my back, and I told him the position. He didn't want to do that.
What position did you want to be in? Is there another one?
I technically wanted to be on all fours, which is supposed to be the best position, or you can be on your side, which is supposed to be really good. It's less stress on your body. On your back is the worst position to give birth in. It puts all the pressure on all of your lower body parts, which is why women end up tearing and they end up with, all sorts of issues.
Sure.
So, of course, he didn't want that, wanted me on my back. Eventually, I caved because my epidural fell out, so I had no anesthesia. I was screaming in pain, and every time I screamed in pain, he would just scream at me, stop screaming. Like, that was his bedside manner throughout my whole delivery.
Were there nurses around? Like,
the nurses were like, didn't know what to do. They're like, do we stop the doctor? Like, do we like the nurse was there. So when the doctor finally left the delivery room, because I won't get into all the logistics of it because whatever, my son is beautiful and amazing and none of you hoes will ever be worthy. But
I'm
already a very single mom. None of you hoes will be worthy of my son. He is a king. He's beautiful. He's amazing. But when the doctor left the room, the nurse I was in, she turned to me because I was hysterical. The baby was hysterical.
Sure.
And she was like, I just want you to know I'm going to report him because everything he did was completely unprofessional. You should not have been talked to like that. You shouldn't have been listened to. And I started to cry because I was like, I thought I was going insane. And so many people have that experience when they're delivering where it's like, I thought I was a crazy person because you are emotional and you can get erratic. But it was like,
sure.
No, she's agreeing with me and she wasn't in my state. She's telling me I'm right to feel this way. And then there was another nurse that stopped my husband in the hallway and said the same thing. I'm going to report that guy. And then...
was your husband in there?
Yeah, my husband was in there and just as shocked because it's just like, he's dealing with, there's a million things going on. Like, he's trying to comfort me and be there for me. The doctor's being a jerk. He doesn't want to punch the doctor because he wants his son to be born. He doesn't want me to get upset. If he gets upset, he doesn't want to fan the flames of my anger and while I'm in this state. He just wants me to be calm and he wants his son to be born and be healthy. So I can understand how he's just like, I want to strangle this guy, but he's giving birth to my child.
Right.
And so when the guy left, the doctor came back in to talk to me and I was like holding the baby and I wouldn't look at him because I was like, if I look at him, I'm either going to burst out in tears or cuss him out. And I don't want either of those things to happen. I want to enjoy this time with my son. I want to salvage some of the delivery because what was more upsetting than anything else was he ruined a moment that I can never get back. And that's what people don't get about the trauma of going through like something like a traumatic delivery like that, where it's like, I can never get this moment back.
Yeah, and you're gonna think of him when,
Every time.
yeah, he yelled at you, and so you'd be like, ah, and he'd be like, ah.
Like, stop yelling. Like that, he said, stop screaming all the time,
That's
right?
stressing me out. I
Yeah.
would be a mess. I'd be a mess because I complain a lot. Like if I get a shot, I'll be like, ow, ow, ow.
Yeah.
That's just getting a shot. So if the doctor was like, ow, 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 like, I don't know, taunting me, I'd have a breakdown.
Yeah, it was hard not to. Like,
It's
remember
awful.
I was screaming like, please stop. Whatever he was doing was really hurting me. I said, please stop.
I
And
hate him.
Yeah, he just kept yelling at me. And then the best part was he finds my hospital room that same day my son was born. Finds my hospital room, walks in. It's me and my husband and my son. And he's like, he's giving this bullshit apology where he's just like, his apology was this: I'm sorry I wasn't soft enough with you. Is what his apology was. And it really took everything in me not to cuss this man out and be like, you think that was the issue?
Yeah, he's still putting it on you. Like, you're like,
Yeah.
I didn't need extra sensitivity, but you were
You're
awful.
You're hypersensitive. As
Right.
A person. And I'm like, no, you idiot. No, I'm not hypersensitive as a person. I was a person that you should have listened to, and you should have had respect enough for what I wanted, because I was petrified to give birth.
Right.
That's the scariest thing. It was the one thing that kept me from having kids this whole time was actual childbirth.
Sure.
It was the crap out of it. And so I did all of my research on how to have the most peaceful, chill childbirth that is possible.
And then this guy comes in.
And then life was like, oh, that's hilarious. We're going to give Satan to you to birth your baby.
Do you think the nurse made him apologize?
It's quite possible that she told him, or somebody pulled him aside and was like, you've been reported by like 3 different people, so I suggest you go talk to this woman.
Right.
You know, it's quite possible somebody pulled him aside and was like, I don't care if you want to, for your sake, go and apologize.
Yeah, go say something.
Yeah. And
That's
that's
crazy.
The best he could come up with was, sorry, I wasn't soft enough with you. I never wanted to punch a person, but did not have the physical ability to even stand up at that point.
Right.
Like, I just wanted to leap out of the bed and just punch this guy in the face and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't soft enough with your face. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, right.
Even softer with your face required a softer punch. I apologize.
Do you think, did he know that you were a comedian? Or I guess he wouldn't know what you did?
No.
Okay.
He had no idea. He had no idea what I did. He had no idea who I was. He didn't care. He didn't even ask about anything. So it was like, ugh. And I've heard traumatic birth stories. So I should have been a little more prepared for something like that. But I was very much in shock.
I wonder how my sister would have handled something like that. Because she was in the NICU, and I remember the nurses were so nice. I was trying to picture if there was like someone on like a fucking tear. Because, yeah, you don't really know. You're like, oh, is this just how some doctors are? And then I'm new to this or something. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah, it blows massive monkey chunks.
Maybe you can sue the hospital.
Right? I probably would.
That's my new game plan. I gotta find something to sue.
Yeah, I gotta find somebody to sue.
I gotta find something to sue.
Which just sucks because everybody else in the hospital was amazing.
Sure.
Just that one freaking guy, and I'm like, can I just sue him?
Right.
I would just like to kind of ruin him, not all of yous.
Right.
The rest of yous was good.
I wanted to ask what you were like as a kid because, so I know you've got your twin sister.
Yeah.
And I actually remember walking into Gotham one time, and I think you were on stage, but I knew you were on the lineup, so I walk in and I saw your twin, and she looked like you, but I knew it wasn't you, and enough so I did a double take, but I didn't know you had a twin, so I was like, And then I'm pretty sure you were talking about having a twin on stage.
Yeah.
And I had never seen you do jokes about having a twin. And I was like, oh, that's her. That's the twin. But so you've got the twin and then brother, older sister. What were you guys all like as kids?
So there's 5 of us all together.
Wow.
Yeah. There's 5 of us. We are all absolutely insane in our own ways. My siblings are amazing, man. You get us all together. I think they are so funny. Like all of us together, we just can't stop laughing. Like we're big goofballs, and some of us are like sarcastic funny. Like my brother and my twin sister, my brother Steven and my twin sister are very sarcastic funny. They have dark sense of humor. and then me and my brother Tony are like goofy funny, and then my sister Veronica's accidentally funny, where she just does stuff and we laugh, and then she laughs along with it because she's got a great sense of humor. Where she's like, "Oh yeah, that's really dumb what I just did," you know.
Which
And
is
so,
a gift when the person who is accidentally funny is also has a good sense of humor, because otherwise then you're just like laughing at them and then it's like,
yeah, and then it gets awkward. But she has a
right.
really, really, really great sense of humor, and she's also got stuff she does intentionally that's just really funny. When she'll just say some funny stuff. She's very all of us are pretty fearless in what we'll say. It's like we're all pretty fearless in what we say. So things get pretty real when we're around each other. But as kids, it's funny because as a kid, I was pretty shy, which always like blows people away. I was pretty shy. But I always knew I could make people laugh. Like it was my favorite thing to do since I was a little kid was make people laugh.
Was your twin sister shy?
Yeah, she was even worse than me. She was incredibly shy. And she was more self-conscious than I was. I was self-conscious. Like there was always something in me that I guess always had that comics attitude of like, oh, you're going to tease me for that? Well, great. I'm going to make a better joke than that about myself then.
Right.
Where it was humor was my defense mechanism. Humor was a way I protected myself. Humor was the way I made friends and like created relationships. It was the only way I was social, because I was always a little bit socially awkward and had a bit of social anxiety, which I think a lot of comedians do.
Sure.
Ironically. A lot of people are like, oh, that's so weird. You perform for crowds. And I'm like, not really, because I'm in the driver's seat when I'm performing. When I'm in a social situation, I'm not in control of anything, and it freaks me out.
100%. Totally relate to that. Yeah, I always try to, it's hard to like put your finger on, but it's like, yeah, a stand-up comedy environment is 100% artificial. It's very, very, it's just a totally different, and if you think about it, it's probably why people that are okay with doing something that is so socially uncomfortable as trying to make people laugh and being on stage are okay with that, because we're already used to being kind of uncomfortable anyway.
Yeah. And it's also a thing, the people that I know that are better in social situations, the comics that I know, are also the comics that are better at crowd work. Because they're not to like reach out to the crowd, whereas I'm like, no, please don't talk.
Are you better at social situations? So like at like an office party?
If it's controlled like that, I can be.
Okay.
Somebody I know. If I'm by myself, I swear, like even my first couple of nights at the Cellar, I remember thinking I must be coming off as like such a bitch that doesn't want to like talk to anybody because I sit at a table by myself. And I'm like, no, people frighten me. I'm fascinated by them and I want to watch them, but they frighten me and I don't.
The Cellar's a comedy club in New York, and that's an extremely intense social situation, and that's branded in my mind too, and that's like a overthinker's, like, not wet dream because it's not a good overthinking thing, but that's like a match to an overthinker's fire.
Yeah.
I used to always sit in the stairs there. If people were at the table where, like, even if there was one person where I was like, that person's energy makes me uncomfortable, I would sit on the stairs. But if I was hosting, I wouldn't go up in between.
I totally get it. Like, there's times where, like, if I don't know anybody at the table, I'm not going back there.
Right.
I'm not going back there to say hi to anybody. I'm sitting at the table by myself.
But that's normal, I think.
But I think in the beginning, I was so conscious of it that I was like, oh my God, I'm only sitting by myself. And people would come up to me and be like, well, why aren't you sitting at the table? Why aren't you sitting at the table? And I'm like, I don't need to sit at the table. I'm still part of the club. Like, it doesn't matter if I sit at the table.
Right.
A lot of people, I remember one night there was somebody came up to me and was like, you're not sitting at the table? Chris Rock is there. And I turned and I don't know him. I'm going to sit at the table and stare at him and be like, hey, big fan. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know him. We're not going to have personal stories.
Right.
If somebody's sitting at the table like you or Colin Quinn or like...
he's nice.
He's such a sweet...
He's so nice, yeah.
He made me feel welcome the first time I said it, right away.
Yeah, bless him.
He's so sweet. Or like people that I know, then I'll sit at the table and be like, all right, cool. I'll talk with you guys for a few minutes and I'm going back to my table where I can eat my food in peace.
Amen.
Which hopefully, I mean, I do miss it though. I'm not going to say I don't miss that environment because I miss all comedy hangout environments right now.
Me too. I miss that. I miss the comedy hang. So your sister, she was more shy than you were. Did people make comments about you guys being twins?
People knew us as the twins. We were pretty much like, I mean, I was like, the twins, yeah. Debbie and Gina, yeah, the twins.
Right.
And so they knew us. And there was, I think in middle school, we had another set of twins, Lamar and Lamont Moore.
Were people like, oh, you guys got a date? It's twins.
Well, it was more like, are you guys like friends with Lamar and
Right.
Lamont because you guys are twins too? It's like, we're friends with them because they're cool people. Like we're not
Right.
just, we weren't just like, hey, there's twins, let's talk to them. I mean, it's always cool when you meet twins as a twin,
Sure.
but it's not the only factor that makes you want to be friends with people.
Right.
And so it's a lot easier because like once we realized, I was like, hey, let's talk about some twin stuff, which is awesome. But yeah, it's funny because usually with twins, somebody, like one person has the outgoing personality and then one twin has the more introverted personality. I'm a closeted introvert. My sister is also a closeted introvert, but like personality wise, we seem very, very different when you meet us. He's very dark and sarcastic, and I'm very like, hi, really, I'm like very friendly, Gina the friendly comic. And like we're just very different energy wise, but it works. It's like very yin and yang when we're together.
I didn't know that about twins. That they had the more outgoing one. I relate to the being closeted introvert. Since Corona happened, I've been like reading more about reading more about ADHD, and then just trying to understand how like my brain works better. And I was like, I'm an introvert because it's about how you recharge, which I didn't know. So you could be an outgoing introvert, but I recharge. Like I was one of the interviews you were talking about how you didn't like necessarily go out after the shows. Because I was listening to one about when you were with Jimmy Kimmel and going out after that.
That's always a battle when people invite me to go out because it's like, I know I should be social, but
It's like you're drained. It's like I'm like sometimes it's like or I'll be like I could listen, but I don't have much more to share.
Yeah, and then there's like also like with experiences like that, like it was so funny because when you start hanging out more, you start to really see different shades of people that you thought you knew. And I'm not always, I have no chill in my face. So when I see something I don't like, it shows up on my face right away. I've been trying for years.
Really?
Oh yeah.
You're so friendly though. What's the not chill face? Oh yeah, okay, got it.
Like I will just look at
side eye.
That's the side eye.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right, there it is. Yeah.
I remember it happened that night with somebody, and I was just like, I immediately excused myself so
Right.
that they couldn't see it on my face. I was like, you know what? It is getting late.
Yeah.
I was like, I am going to call it a day. Good night, everyone. Enjoy your time. And that's another thing why I never really hung out. But I learned that lesson early on in comedy because, you take one instance. I would learn the lesson the first time. I remember it was late night and some guy offered me a ride home and I mistakenly took it, not realizing that this guy was completely, his plan was to make a pass at me. And I was like 18 years old. So I'm 18 years old in this like 40-year-old guy's car. And he's, the first thing he said was, oh, let's go to a bar, let's talk about comedy. And I'm a young comic and I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, maybe I can learn from this guy. Mind you, I'm also texting my mom, hey mommy, I'll be home late, blah blah blah, because I'm still living at home.
Right.
And so we're in this bar in the Bronx. We start talking. He puts his hand on my thigh. I was like, okay, time to go. I was like, I'm gonna leave. He's like, oh, I'll give you a ride home. Starts driving me home, pulls over to the side of the road, shoves his hand down my shirt without saying anything. I froze like a deer in headlights because I was like, I really want to break this guy's arm right now. Like, I really want to physically harm this human being.
Sure.
But he's also the one driving. I don't know this guy. I don't know how dangerous he is. He's bigger than me. At the time, I had not, because now I've been boxing and everything else, but I had no training back then. I was just a person with a temper. And so I was like, I really want to hurt this guy. And I guess my face changing affected him so much that he just looked like he saw a ghost and just like pulled his hand out of my shirt and just drove me home.
Damn.
And then like the next night he saw me out at a comedy club and he was like, hey, are we cool? And I lost it. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, are we cool? No, we're not cool, you idiot. I trusted you. I trusted you and you completely betrayed that trust. And it was stupid of me to trust you because I didn't know you, and I will never put myself in that position again. So from that point on, if I didn't know you, I didn't take a ride from you. I didn't hang out with you late night. I didn't do any of that unless I knew the person.
How did he react when you said that in public? Was he looking around like, I don't? Woo, women.
Approached me. I don't know if you ever did Gladys's comedy room. Did you ever do Gladys?
Never did it. So that's a. I didn't hang out at the the comic strip much. The comic. So that's like an infamous room. This woman Gladys, who's like you always hear about her in New York. She runs this room for like years. And wait, Gina, did she pass away?
She did not, but her husband
did. Okay, yeah. So she ran this room at the comic strip.
Yeah.
And I never ended up doing it, but I had a friend that used to talk about doing it.
Oh yeah, she does it at the strip now. It was originally at a place called Hamburger Harry's. It was in the back of Hamburger Harry's, and we would do our sets there. And Gladys was the first person to give me spots. But when we were in the club, he made sure when I was there to approach me down by the bathrooms. The bathrooms were downstairs, so there was not a lot of people there, if any. So he made sure when he approached me, he saw me going to the bathroom downstairs, came downstairs, waited for me outside of the bathroom, and then approached me about it.
And you were a baby. So when you started comedy, also I wanted to ask, when you and your sister did the competition together, right afterwards was your sister like, I'm out, and you were like, I'm doing it again?
Well, no, because my sister did a couple of open mics with me, and sometimes we would get on stage together. But she's a perfectionist. And I feel like you can't really be a perfectionist in comedy because there's so many things that are not going to go your way.
Interesting. Because also it also makes you want. It's almost sometimes I feel like it is like wanting to be a perfectionist because you're like, I must up. I want to do that different. But then I guess if you are a perfectionist, you know what? You'd probably just never want to get on stage because you know it's not going to be perfect.
If it's not going to be perfect, you may fight against it. I hope there's perfectionists that are like that are like, I want to get up and do it again. I want to get up and do it again and again and again. And that's great. That's a great attitude to have in general with comedy, is to be like, all right, brush your shoulders off. It takes a while to get that. I mean, when I started, I would cry after every bad set.
Well, you were a baby.
I was a baby.
Because that also, starting at 17 means that you're processing. It's like really integral in as you develop your life processing. You're also then doing it through the comedy processing too, because that means probably any relationship you had or everything, you also were doing your comedy, like friendships, everything was through the filter. Like, were you like in the closet about doing comedy, or would you tell other kids your age you were doing that?
In high school, everyone knew. Because
really?
I knew when I was 14 that I wanted to be a stand-up comic.
Wow.
At 14 years old, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. I have no idea how, but I'm going to do that. I
Googled Brett Butler because of you. So Gina was talking about when she watching Brett Butler on stage and seeing that and that switching your mind, like, I want to do that. And I was like, I know I've heard that name. So I Googled her, comedian. Yes. Always love seeing new comedians. And when I was watching her, I was like, I've seen her before. Brett Butler was on that TV show.
Grace Under Fire.
And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I went down a whole, and then I was reading about her, because you were talking about how she was so influential to you, so that I was like watching her, great comedian, and then reading about that she went back and forth with drug stuff. And I'm grateful that I was researching you at this time to then see her and read about that, because I don't drink, and I had been wanting to drink again recently. And then seeing her talk about being in and out of rehab stuff, I was like, I got to not drink again.
You're like, okay, universe, I get the message.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, when it comes back around like that. And her stand-up, the special that I saw was Brett Butler Sold Out. Mm-hmm. And the first special I saw The Child Ain't Right, which was actually her first special later on.
I didn't see that one.
I'm like, I have both on VHS.
Yep.
One day I'll get them converted to like something I can put on my computer so I can obsessively watch it. And I mean, I knew that special verbatim.
Wow.
I watched that special. I knew that special verbatim. I remember what she was wearing. I remember so much about that special. And I was obsessed with it. And it was through her that I discovered George Carlin. And then I became a huge Carlin fan. Like, she's the reason I started comedy. Carlin's my favorite comic.
Do you think that if, did you start not doing, I don't know how you did it in school, but did you stop focusing on school stuff as you became into that because you were like, this is what I want to do? Like, did you even let yourself, I know, because I was reading that you also consider being a sex therapist, but do you think that your interest in comedy, like, did you let yourself really humor other things, or were you always like, yeah, I'm just pretending I'll do that, but really I'm gonna do this?
It was more like, can I do both? Could I be a
Yeah.
in the comic? It was more like that. The only time it became like a choice was I was actually interested in being a cop. I went and I think I took like a written test or something, and
Really?
yeah, and I remember going in where I said no, and this was because I was still a bit chubby and lazy. I was like, oh, there's a physical part to this test. I'm good. I'm out. I was like, I gotta jump over a what now? They're like, yeah, you gotta climb over a fence, and I was like, hard pass. I'm gonna get out of here now.
You're like, I'll shoot a motherfucker, but I gotta be sitting down. I gotta jump.
I will shoot a motherfucker as long as he was within range, and I don't have to get my heart rate up.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, no, hard pass. I'm not jumping over a fence for this. I don't care about it that much. So I was like, no.
Did you have to do the classes leading up to taking the test?
I don't remember. I don't think so. Honestly, it was like, hey, you want to be a cop? Come in, take a test. It was something like that, or come in and get I forget if it was just like we came in, and I know we were all sitting in this room, and somebody, of course, somebody did the stupidest thing because they were going to drug test all of us.
Right.
And somebody was like, well, what if you eat a lot of poppy seeds? And I was like, you don't eat a lot of poppy seeds, you moron. And the cop was like, yeah, you'd have to eat a ton of poppy seeds.
He's like shoveling them in his mouth at the while he's like, oh, well, I eat a lot of them, so.
I got a jar of poppy seeds right here. I'm just eating handfuls of poppy seeds all day long.
What if your roommate does cocaine and sneezes and it goes up your nose? Would that fuck up your test at all? And they're like,
I thought I was giving myself insulin. Turned out it was heroin.
Yeah.
Does that count? It was accidental heroin.
They're like, okay, buddy. All right. So you were like, so when you were in high school, that was like a big part of your identity too. They're like, oh, that's Gina the comic. So that probably put a lot of pressure on you to be like, I got to make this work.
I think all my friends, I pretty much, again, in social situations, I stuck to who I knew. So I had my group of friends, which were mainly all the people in drama, all the people in theater, because I was in drama and I was in musical theater.
Big high school?
Yeah, Lehman High School in the Bronx. So big now that they've actually divided it into being like 3 other schools plus a high school. Like, it's
damn.
weird. That's how much space they've had in that school, and that's also how the school system is going. Just FYI, they're just throwing them all together like a combo.
Right.
And so it was such a big school. Like, I didn't know everybody. Like, there's people that'll hit me up now and be like, oh my God, we graduated from high school together. And I was like, together, or you just happen to be in the same graduating class.
Right.
You know, because all the people I knew were my close-knit group of drama friends that we're still tight to this day. And so I would perform for them. In fact, my first technical performance was in front of all my theater friends while we were waiting outside of the for them to open the theater so we could rehearse. I forget what show we were doing, but I was there and they were like, oh, you should do some comedy for us. And I pulled out this disgusting hairbrush from my bag. I mean, it was like hair sticking out of it. Like, it was so nasty. And I just used that as a microphone. And that was my first performance, was for them, technically, in my high school.
It's so funny needing to hold that thing when you're practicing.
Yeah. I needed a microphone. I needed something to be a microphone.
Yep.
And sometimes even to this day, I'll be like, I'll be running through stuff and I'll do the mime and I'm like, what am I doing? I don't need to, why am I miming a microphone right now? Because there is a part of that it's part of the show.
It's part of the show. I remember walking around. You looking back on it, it's like, I just remember walking around holding a remote control and pacing. And so it was like my roommate, and telling my roommate, I don't even know what the fuck, some kind of jokes I thought of, but just walking around with the mic, the fucking remote, like, check this out.
Check this out, you guys.
It's comedy gold. And they're like, the rent is due, Emma. The rent is due. So when you so you're in high school and you're doing that, and your sister stops doing it, would you keep the other parts of were you able to keep other parts of your social life? Not, like, were you hanging out with comedians when you were doing that? Did you make comedy friends at that young age?
Not comedy friends, no, not until I got to college. I was obsessed with comedy and became a student of comedy, so I watched everybody. I mean, I watched Lily Tomlin. I watched George Burns, all the Georges, George Burns, George Carlin, George Lopez, saw them all. Brett Butler, Kathleen Madigan, any comic I could see, I could watch, you know, all of them. And I watched every comedy-based, like comedian-based sitcom. I watched All American Girl with Margaret Cho. When I did her podcast, I told her that both her show and her special, I'm the One That I Want, were hugely impactful in the beginning.
She was so fucking famous for a while.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And the more I got into entertainment, the more I realized, damn it, good for her. Because she's a woman of color. She was queer, you know, and she was so famous. And like it, and was curvy for a while, for a minute. And it is, people are racist, sexist, all this. All this, and she did that, and she was really famous. Like,
she changed the game with a lot of what she did, and I don't think she gets enough credit for that.
I agree.
Yeah, because she was one of those female comics that I saw, or one of those comics in general. I won't even put her in the category of a female comic. One of those comics in general who was so bold and daring and just said whatever was on her mind at each stage in her career.
Sure.
The only difference being when she's, as she moved further and further up in her career, or changed courses a little bit, she just got a little more political. That's it. That's the only thing that's changed. Everything else is the same to me. When you watch comedy, it's like you're watching somebody who's not afraid to speak their mind.
Right.
And it's so essential, especially right now.
How is it navigating? I was reading that you mentioned once that your husband's family was more conservative and your family is more liberal. And I'm actually, I'm relating that a little bit with my girlfriend's from Louisiana. Not that means you're more conservative if you're from Louisiana, but
yeah, definitely more conservative than being a New Yorker.
Sometimes the things that just pop out, I'm like, what are you talking? I'm like, that we got in a blowout the other day because I was like, that's right wing rhetoric, and she was like, well, I don't know right wing stuff because I'm not right wing, so I don't even know that. I'm like, well, I'm telling you it is, and she was like, well, it's not. I'm like, no, it is. I was like, that is literally like a talking piece, what you just said. And then we got in a whole fight about it because she was like, but I'm not. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Whatever you are, that is that. And then it was like, so it can be a little tricky to navigate sometimes.
Oh, yeah, it can totally be tricky to navigate. You know, there's times when, me and my husband have had very heated discussions about certain things where it's like, you know, we had a very heated discussion about Colin Kaepernick. We had a very heated discussion. My husband's ex-military, raised by conservative parents who are very Republican. He's libertarian or Republican-like.
That's what I think my girlfriend is, if she would just admit it. She's definitely more libertarian. And it's opened my eyes up to a lot of stuff, too. Like, I like that she's got a little gun.
Yeah.
And, you know, because someone broke into her apartment once and she's like 4 foot. She's not really, but she's very short. And I am, too. And that sometimes makes me feel safe. But it's different, you know, but it's good for us to be open to learning about that too.
But I think it takes openness on both sides, and that's important. And I don't say that to make a knock at conservatives. I'm talking to liberals as well.
Yes.
Be open-minded and listen to the other side, because we cannot get past this. One of the things I will tell everybody to watch, The Social Dilemma. And I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I'm avoiding it.
There was a great part in The Social Dilemma that talks about how social media and certain media outlets in general are making it impossible for us to have these conversations and be open-minded, because they feed you the rhetoric, they feed you the propaganda, and you eat it up like soup. You just you chop it up and you believe it, and then you see somebody who's conservative and you go, you're the devil, and they look at you and you go, you're the devil, and then there's no room to talk or to learn. And a lot of it is like understanding people's core values and understanding your own core values, and they may not match up, but you can have open, honest discussions without wanting to wring each other's neck, just under that base of like, oh, I understand where you're coming from because your core values are different from mine. You come from a place that values XYZ, whereas I come from a place that values XYZ.
And also it's like, and when you get to the root of it, a lot of it is people just wanting to be able to have freedom and thrive and not be taken advantage of. And then to some people it's like, but then we start to see each other, like they'll be like, okay, but if you're liberal, then you're just going to give all your money to the government, but the government's corrupt, and then if you're liberal, then you see the conservative, it's like, well, you don't want to help other people. And it's like, no, I do, but I want to do it on my terms. And then there's like, but it's like, just, very few people want to like actively hurt other people.
Yeah.
It's just, they think the other side's trying to fuck them over.
Yeah, in some way. And it's like, not only do I not have that power, I don't have that desire. Like,
right.
Think about it just based on logic. I don't have the power to fuck you over. I don't have that. I don't hold the reins.
Right.
The people that you think that you've got it wrong, you're not concentrating on who actually has the power to fuck you over.
Totally.
They're making it easy for me to be a target because I'm the thing closest to you. But really, pay attention to your senators, your congressmen, like all these people that you should actually be paying attention to because you're eating up the propaganda that's blinding you to the actual problem.
How long did it take in the relationship for you guys to start having those conversations?
Oh, right away, because I'm pretty mouthy. I am only because I come from, my ex was very emotionally abusive, and I came from a place of constantly feeling like I had to quiet myself. So once I got out of that relationship, went through therapy, went through terrible dating situations and some fun ones, and met my husband, I was at a place where it was like, I now became comfortable with my need to have a voice in a relationship and to be able to say, no, I disagree with that.
Huge.
Yeah, that's a huge thing in a relationship, is to be able to say to your partner, I disagree with you. Doesn't mean I don't love you. Doesn't mean that I don't still want to be with you. I disagree with you on this thing, and let's talk it out. And maybe you can see my point and I can see your point, and we can just come to an understanding of each other's feeling about it.
To be fair to my girlfriend, she was the one mirroring more what you just said there, which is the more responsible thing and the right thing. And I think I was the one who was more snapping at her about, that's right-wing rhetoric. And she was like, you're not even listening to what I'm talking about. So I totally agree with that. And
the conversations with my husband, I was like that too.
Yeah, and it's also, I personally am not very well informed. So like for me to be snapping at someone about politics is like a real stretch.
Same.
Because it's like, I remember Dan St. Germain had some joke where he was talking, I'm going to totally botch it, but basically he was like, if someone's like, I'll be like, you should recycle. And then if they say one or two facts, I'm like, well, I don't know how against it. I don't know how to argue with that, but you should recycle. And I relate to that too, but that's good you brought it up right away because I definitely didn't. I just kind of like,
I couldn't help myself because we come from two, so incredibly different worlds.
Right.
He was raised in the Midwest in a family I would probably consider like middle class or upper middle class, whereas I came from a family that was, we went through broke times, like being on welfare, waiting online for food, stuff like that. And I grew up in the South Bronx, and I come from a Puerto Rican background. He comes from a white background, and he grew up in a nice little suburban neighborhood, and we had different problems growing up.
Sure.
And so coming from that world, I remember telling my husband at one point when we were, because we'll discuss everything from, race relations to whatever's going on politically, very limited because, like I said, I'm not informed politically.
Right.
So for me, I'm like, I don't really want to talk about this because I don't know about it. Like, I'm not trying to cut you off because I know you love talking politics with people that are only with people that really agree with you, but I don't know enough to really want to discuss this. I don't have the desire to discuss it, but when we would talk about like the Kaepernick thing, eventually we were able to come to an understanding of why we felt differently about it. And he was able to come to a better understanding about what it was about. Where it was like, you had that, trigger reaction like a lot of people did because you're a sports fan, because you came from a conservative family.
Right.
Because, you look at it as, oh, this, a lot of the conversations we had about it were like, he wasn't even a strong player at the time. And I'm like,
oh my God, when people bring that up, that's so, but what's so funny about that point is that's really someone looking at it through a sports lens. Because it's like, what? But people do that with comedy too. They'll be like, someone will do something heinous and they'll be like, and he wasn't funny. And you're like, okay. The gravity of what we're talking about supersedes how he was as a player. But it is so interesting. People really do fixate on that. That's
an easy way to explain it away instead of the conversations that I've had with my husband are always about, you can stay surface level if you want, or you can dig deeper and actually understand it. But if you want to stay surface level, you live in that world.
Right.
I'm the person that wants to understand at the deepest level what is going on and why it's going on.
If anything, it took more balls of him to kneel
Yeah.
when he wasn't fucking winning
Yeah.
all the time. Because it's like, look, I know I don't have a lot of leverage here. Because there's things I've done where I'm like, man, if I had more leverage, I probably wouldn't do this, or I'd
Yeah.
be more true to myself here. But so for him to be like, I'm gonna take a knee right now,
Yeah.
you know,
And a lot of people, I don't know, it's such a difficult thing to talk about because
it
of how
is.
I feel about it. But a lot of people, I read an article where there was a soldier, an ex-soldier, like a veteran, who told him that taking a knee was the most respectful thing to do, to go about it,
Absolutely.
because they take a knee for fallen soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people have no idea that that's part of the thing. Like all these people that are like, oh, that's disrespectful to people in the military. And I was reading this article where this military dude finally came out and was like, no, I literally had a conversation with him about this. And this is what I told him. And then everybody's like, all right, just relax.
It's about like believing in the country enough too to be like, I think that think that we can make the best of ourselves shine through, and I'm willing to even try here to try to do
Using
that.
your platform in that way, no matter, regardless of your status in that given field. He was like, I know I'm probably going to get in a world of trouble for this, from the nation, from the NFL, from everything.
I do wonder if he knew going into it. I wonder if he had any idea.
He has to know.
You think?
Oh yeah, I think. And here's the thing: what people don't get about like just people of color in general, specifically Black men, they are aware of how they are viewed, how they will be viewed, and how they will have to handle the situation after that. And if it's not handled with class, if it's not handled with calm, they are looked at as the angry Black man.
I remember you seeing something about your mom saying that don't get mad because then you'll be seen as the angry Puerto Rican girl, and then it'll dismiss what you're angry about.
You'll just be the angry Puerto Rican girl in the room. You'll just be the angry ethnic person that happened to come in that day. Like, you can't even fully express your anger. And this is something I talked with, I remember having a conversation with Kyle Grooms. I love Kyle. And we had this whole conversation. There was a comic that had accused both me and Kyle of stealing material.
Damn, that's a
leap.
That's a big in the comedy world. That's a big one. That's like a
no.
That's a big no.
And we were talking about how angry it made us.
Yeah.
But how we couldn't express that anger. How it was like I couldn't even tell this person to like go fuck themselves or go off on them, because if I did, I look like the bully in the situation.
Did they write you privately or did they do it publicly?
I was approached. We were all approached around the same time. It was me, Kyle Grooms, Ryan Reese, and Michael Somerville. Were all approached by this one comic. And
wow, he or she really thought they were quite influential.
And this was a person that we were like, well, here's the thing. If we were going to steal material, it'd be from somebody who's funny.
Right.
Like, we were just like, it wouldn't be you.
Right. You wrote that joke too? Because I'm going to fucking abandon it now. Christ,
I didn't realize you had that fit.
Right.
But we were all like, this is so bizarre. And it was just an insecurity thing on the other person's part. And we all understood it. But me and Kyle was like, it makes me so mad that I can't go off the way I want to, because then I look like I'm the villain in the story. When the story gets told, I'm the angry Black comic.
Right. Interesting. I wouldn't even have thought of that.
Yeah, a lot of it is that, where you're like, I have to control my response, because if I don't control my response, it's going to be worse for me than the other person.
How did faith like weave itself throughout your life? Like, did the seeds for faith get planted from your parents, or how does faith play a role in?
Latinos are big on Jesus. We're big on the whole God thing. Most Latinos are Catholic. My parents left Catholicism, both of them, and we went to a Presbyterian church, which is like Jesus Light. It wasn't like
What is the difference between Presbyterian and what is it? I get confused about the difference with the different churches.
Presbyterian for me, I mean, just from my personal experience, I don't know the actual difference. Just from my personal experience, having gone, because I went to a Presbyterian church, then I went to a Latino Presbyterian church, then I went to an Apostolic church. So the first church I went to was definitely more, it was more white people at the first Presbyterian church. And it was very much like, you come in, you read the Bible, you do what you're told, you leave, everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
The Latino Presbyterian church was more like, you come in, you read the Bible, you participate in our activities, then you go and you do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
The Apostolic church, and this was probably my most experience in church, the most experience I had was the 7 years I spent going to an Apostolic church, which is literally the ways of the apostle. So that's kind of what they follow. So it was no makeup for women, no pants.
So
no
strict.
Jewelry. Yeah, no jewelry, no makeup, no pants.
What?
No drinking, no drugs. Obviously, the big no-nos for every church. But it was very much like being Pentecostal. Now the difference between, and you can ask different people. Some people say apostolic people are more strict. Some people say Pentecostal people are more strict. It depends on what kind of church you go to. I loved the years I spent in the apostolic church because it sort of brought me back to my faith. Now, when I say I'm a person of faith, I am a person of faith in that I truly believe that there is something other than us that we have not considered yet. I don't know if it's the universe. I believe we are all energy and we react to energy differently.
Me too.
Yeah. As much as I'm a person of faith, I am not a person that loves churches. I don't love organized religion for the reason that you cannot get a group of people together under one belief without making it us versus them.
Right.
And that's the issue I have with religion, is that it becomes us versus them. If you're not like me, you're the enemy.
Which I understand that too, because it's like, especially like if you feel the awakening in your heart and it's something that is true and superb and brings you to a better place, this is best case scenario, you will almost become evangelical about it. Like if I eat something really good, I'm like, oh my God, you gotta fucking try this. I like that you
put it.
And then it's like, and then if someone's like, no, and you're like, no, you gotta try it, it becomes, it's like almost like you're wanting to share this thing that was good for you, but then if someone says it's not good for them, then you think they're attacking you, and then it's a pretty quick few steps to brr.
Yeah, well, I remember having a conversation with my best friend about him saying like, religious people always think they're like so holier than thou, and I go, well, actually, if they're religious, they are holier than you. By definition, they're holier than you. There's no malice behind saying that they are actually holier than you.
Right.
But what you're talking about is a status thing. They think they're better than you. They think that, and that is with some religious people, I will say that some who don't really get the purpose of being Christ-like do put themselves in a higher position than you because they don't drink, they don't do this. And let me tell you something. I was with somebody for 7 years who didn't drink, didn't smoke, never cursed, and he was the meanest individual I'd ever been with him at. So you can't tell me that people that drink and smoke and curse are the worst people and you're better because you don't do any of that. No, I've seen how that works. And people are douchebags no matter what. So douchebags exist in all realms.
Right.
And I feel like with that separation that people have in the church is what upsets me the most about people not getting to know the good side of the church, the supportive side of the church, the family aspect of the church that I got to know for 7 years, where it was like, these people were my family.
Did you do the no makeup?
Yeah, girl.
For 7 years, you didn't wear makeup while also performing?
I would wear eyeliner and very minimal makeup.
Wow.
I would wear BB cream, or I would wear like, a tinted moisturizer of some kind.
And sneak it in a little bit.
Yeah, I only really wore makeup if I was doing television.
Wow. And did you feel bad when you wore it on television, where you're like, oh shit?
I felt bad for the people that I knew were going to see it from church and be like, oh, she's wearing makeup.
And they thought makeup was bad because it was not part of...
It's just not part of your natural beauty. And it's also a way of like, sort of like in their mind, like you're slutting yourself up. You're like kind of like, all right, yeah, like I'm wearing all this makeup to get attention. I want attention. That's why I'm wearing makeup. So it's like, that's what you shouldn't have to do that. God made you as you are, and you're beautiful as you are.
Right.
And I think what's good about that is not necessarily like taking the religious aspect out of it. Believing that you can exist without makeup as a female and be okay is an important thing for every
Yes.
female to have. You know what I mean? And so or anybody who identifies as female, feeling like I don't have to wear makeup to feel beautiful. I don't have to. I like it. I like makeup. I like wearing eyeliner. I like wearing lipstick, but I don't need it. And I think that was a lesson at the time that I was willing to learn. Because I had grown so accustomed to leaving the house. I mean, even when I was like a teenager, my mom would sometimes be like, "You're not gonna put on makeup before you leave?" Like, it's like,
it's ingrained. My girlfriend's a makeup artist, and my cousin, this really broke my heart a little bit. My cousin had a couple glasses of wine the other night, and she was like, I want your girlfriend to do my makeup so she can make me pretty, make me look, I think she said make me pretty or make me beautiful, or she asked, like, can she make me beautiful? Can she make me pretty? And I was like, you are pretty. Yeah. I was like, you're beautiful. And my girlfriend's always like, it's about it. She's like, she's like, I get that all the time. Someone will say, can you make me pretty? Can you make me pretty? And it's like, no, that's in your head. This is just to accentuate your.
Yeah. I mean, there was a woman that like, I had worked on a cruise ship and I met her on a cruise ship. Beautiful, beautiful girl. Beautiful. I mean, and I remember she stayed with me. She came to New York. She stayed with me and my brother because she needed a place to stay. She slept in her makeup. I never saw her without makeup.
Did she just forget to take it off? Because I did that the other night.
Like full on eyelashes, everything done. She would sleep like that.
God, I wonder what she looked like without the makeup.
Yeah, that made her feel so insecure that she actually had to wake up and see her face with makeup in order to be okay. Like,
yeah, that's like not good for you either.
No, that's the thing that makes me worry about people, you know, especially young girls, where it's like, you know, that's why sometimes I'll do videos without makeup on. Where I'm like, you know, people need to see it's okay. I know I don't look dolled up. You know, I had somebody come over the other day. My girlfriend that lives with us, my roommate, she's a personal trainer. And one of her clients the other day came in and I was in the bathroom and I guess she needed to use the bathroom. So I like walked out of the bathroom and I looked like a hurricane hit me. I had on my PJs, my hair wasn't done, no makeup, no nothing. And her client goes, oh, I know who you are. And I go, oh, great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go skedaddle somebody. This is what you get when you pop up on me. This is what
right. You're on my turf. So let me be.
At least she recognized me and wasn't like, you look familiar, but.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So you're like, okay, so see, it's not that different when I got all the stuff on.
Yeah, it makes me feel at least like, okay, well, I don't look so different without my makeup on.
See, that is nice because when I was on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, people have been like, I like that show, and I was like, I was on that show, and then they'll literally have to look at me for like 5 minutes and be like, oh yeah, I'm like, Jesus Christ, not to use the Lord's name in vain. I gotta stop doing that.
No, that's fine. I feel the same way. I have to stop doing that too because I will do it, and I'll be like, ugh, I need
to stop doing it.
Yeah,
I need to stop doing it. Because there was a couple quotes where it seems like you've had this very evolved perspective about other performers and that not being jealous. Mm-hmm. How did you get that?
Oh, it took me a while. Because I used to have that thing. I think it was the worst when I was like 4 or 5 years into comedy. Because I feel like when you're not new to the game at that point, but it's almost like you're in intermediate school where you're not in high school, you know, and you're not in elementary school. You're in this weird middle ground. And 4 and 5 years in comedy, you're in this weird middle ground where you've established yourself somewhat. Some people know you, some people don't. You're getting paid at some gigs, you're not getting paid at others. You sort of have to weigh the importance of what you're doing.
Yes, weigh the importance of what you're doing. That's fucking huge. Because you start looking at it like about with the sacrifices and.
Yes. That's exactly what it was. And I think like at that point I would get jealous because I'd be like, well, me and so-and-so are at the same place. How come he or she is getting more than I am when we get the same laughs and work at the same club? And then I realized like, and it was, I forget who had said it to me. I don't know if it was James or if it was somebody else that we were talking about it. I think it was James. And he was like.
James is a comedian that I also know from Boston, who's a very close friend of Gina's.
Yeah, he's my bestie.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were talking and he said, you know, he stopped me because I was going on this like I'm upset. This person got it and I didn't get it. We both went out for the same thing and it's not fair. And I hate that she keeps getting stuff and I'm not getting it. And
You sound like me.
Yeah, and I was really angry at that point. I was really petty.
Yep.
And he just stopped me and he was like, you know, all this time you're complaining about what this other person is getting. You're not concentrating on your own career. You spend more time crapping on somebody else for getting something instead of moving on and concentrating on what you need to get done in your career. And as soon as he said that, it just became ingrained in my brain that every time I wanted to complain about somebody, I was like, okay, backtrack. What are you not doing that you have the time to watch what they're doing?
True.
And that's where I think it comes from, where it's like, oh, okay, I can't be jealous anymore because I know that that's such a waste of time. It's a waste of my time. It doesn't get me anywhere in my career. And it never energetically creates the right energy for you when you're being that negative about somebody else. You know?
Yes, I agree. And it's something to really be like, oh yeah, that's, I remember one time it was about I was like, I was upset because I did that Netflix 15 and then I was like, well, you know what? And now I'm not doing a half hour or an hour. And I was really upset about that. And it was like a while where I was bitching about it. And then finally I asked my manager at the time, I was like, I got this and I didn't get this. And what's going on? He's like, Emma, you haven't even submitted for either of those things. And you're complaining this whole hurricane about not getting something. You didn't even do the most basic thing of submitting for it. And that shut me up pretty quick.
Yeah, because we spend more time complaining about that instead of getting stuff done.
Yeah. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're complaining about not getting the food. You didn't even walk into the restaurant or call them up.
Yeah.
And yet you're leaving a bad review. They didn't deliver. You didn't order.
Yeah, exactly. You never ordered, and wow, what a lesson that is. Like, that's definitely one of those things too, where, I used to have the same attitude when Comedy Central Presents first came out. And I was like, how come nobody's just walking through my door with an offer? And it was, again, another one of those frank conversations where it's like, well, why don't you send them something first before you sit there and wonder why they're not contacting you? They don't even know that you want it.
Right.
Then if they say no, you have a different set of, like, for me, now I'll do something. And if they say no, depending on how the no is given to me, because if you give me no on a bullshit premise, I'm going to get upset at the fact that you're not being honest with me.
Yes, because it's like, don't belittle me there.
Yes.
Just say, and it's all good no matter what it is. Just let me know, or, being straight up's fine.
Like, I've sent in late night tapes. I remember sending a late night tape. I won't say to him. But the critique that came back was, you look nervous in the tape. And I go,
interesting.
I'm like, that doesn't help me, number one. And number two, I'm not nervous. It's one of my favorite clubs to perform in. It was 6 minutes. It was a great crowd. Like, I'm like, so what is the real issue?
Right.
You're not telling me. Because it's nervousness. Let's take that off the table. That's not nervousness. That's not a realistic thing. What is it that you don't like about the material or about what I'm saying? Does it not fit the theme of the show? Do you not think it's funny enough? Tell me that over telling me something that is complete BS.
How do you deal with the ups and downs of stuff? Because also one thing that's tough starting when you're 17 is I think it would be tougher because you don't have as much perspective on, you just don't have as much perspective. So how would you deal with the ups and downs of things?
In the beginning, it was tough. It was tough in the beginning because I was a baby. I didn't know. I would cry after every bad set. If I didn't get something, what? I did. I used to cry.
A bit, because you're 17.
I remember one night I was at Ha Comedy Club, the original Ha, that was Sweet Caroline's before it was Ha. Ha
is notoriously mob run. I'm not trying to get whacked, but Ha is notoriously little shady.
It was a rough scene.
Yeah.
And they did 3 shows a night. And in order to work the room, you had to either bark. Not only did you have to bark, which is handing out flyers, and being like, you've seen barkers before on the street, where they're like, hey, come see a comedy show. That's barking. I'll give you a little comedy lingo.
Yep.
And you also had to help out at the club. So it wasn't like you were done when you were barking. So when I got back into the club, I would have to say hello and goodbye to everybody at the end of the night. So I bombed all 3 shows.
Shoot me.
And I remember this one woman leaving the show, and she looked at me and she went, oh, don't worry, you're young. You'll find something new. And I was just like, oh, this is the only thing for me, lady. Yeah. I hope you get hit by a car. I hate you.
Yeah, I hate you.
It was, in the beginning, it was rough. Those were rough nights. And then, and it's still rough. Like, any comic that tells you they don't care when they bomb is lying. We all care. It's to what degree do you care and how
Right.
you handle it. That's what changes.
Right.
Sometimes, like, now, if I bomb, my frustration comes in, was it me or was it the audience? And
Right.
I absolutely loathe when people are like, it's never the audience. I'm like, so that means one or two things. Either you're delusional and you feel like you've never bombed in front of an audience, or you give in to whatever they want and you don't stick to who you are on stage.
Right.
That means you reorganize depending on what the crowd wants, instead of letting them come to you and being like, this is what I do. You can enjoy it for the next 15 to 30 minutes, or you can sit there and sulk.
Right. Because also it's like sometimes it is the audience, and we got, it's like these are groups of people that they all are on the same page sometimes before they come in is interesting. But there's certain times where you're like, okay, there's a toxicity here, or they might laugh at something in a way that makes me feel like they're not understanding what I'm saying. They're hurtful.
Yeah.
Or they're some kind of, I've felt that, especially in Vegas, to be honest. Where I'll be like,
the Vegas shows were rough for me because a lot of it is such a weird crowd, a weird mix of people. You have young, old, you have people, and a lot of times in Vegas, people are coming to shows because they've just lost all their money. They want to be out of the casino for a little bit.
Right.
And they sit at a show just angry that now they have to spend more money when they just lost their money. So now you have people that are angry that are literally sitting there like, make me laugh.
Right. Make me forget about my debt. And you're like,
oh. But I have this really funny dark story you're not going to like.
Yeah, here it is. I wanted to ask about this as the last one, and only if you feel comfortable talking about it. Was your Instagram post recently about a joke that you that you switched your thinking about that was problematic, or what happened?
So initially, I had written this bit, and the way the bit went was there was a guy that approached me after the show, and he said, "I don't normally laugh. I don't normally find women funny. You were okay." And I leaned in and I said, "I have a penis." Like, that was the joke. But I extended the joke to make a reference to what I thought was an innocent reference to Pinocchio, when I realized that the guy didn't know I was joking. And I said the phrase, "I'm a real girl." And where I didn't realize that was problematic, because in my mind, I was like, get it? Like Pinocchio?
Right.
A real girl? Was that it was a dig at the transgender community. I didn't realize that. I had been approached.
Oh, I didn't take it like that. Like it was saying, oh, yeah. I see. I didn't take it like that.
Time in Vancouver. Now, here's the difference. I was approached in Vancouver by a couple, and immediately when I was approached, my first words were, "I'm so sorry, that was not my intention."
Right.
But the woman that I was approached by, she was not trans, her wife was. And her wife was, very shy about the whole situation, did not want to talk about it, clearly was affected by it. I apologized to her immediately. I said, I'm so sorry. That is not at all what I meant. But her wife, understandably, the one that was not trans, was very upset and kept going in and going in and going in to the point where she wanted me to grovel. Now, here's how I feel about people like that. It does not matter where you fall on the sexual spectrum. It does not matter how you are in life.
Was the wife white?
Yes.
See, that always makes me wonder, too, because I'm like, I wonder if, there's there's just always so many layers of race, class, gender. And then also when I even think about that, I got to remember, and the reason I even know that is I was lucky enough to go to a liberal arts college that taught me about that. So then that's a class thing. Okay. But it's like, you can't help but wonder, you're like, did she feel the entitlement of critiquing you to that degree?
Yeah.
Because it was some kind of whiteness she wasn't aware of. And
yeah, I mean,
it's complicated.
She came at me, and in my mind, I'm like, it doesn't matter where you fall on the sexuality spectrum. It does not matter where you fall in life. You can be an asshole. You can be an asshole if you're gay, straight, bi, whatever, black, white. It doesn't matter.
Amen.
You can still be an asshole. And in that
people
moment,
are people.
She approached me. I apologized. That should have somewhat quelled the situation and
yes.
the situation. She kept going, saying my apology was insincere and blah blah blah, and just going off on me to the point where the entire audience that was still there, because I was saying goodbye to the audience, one of my favorite things was the meet and greet after the show.
Mm.
And so people that were standing behind her were like, you know, after she left, were like, please don't even take her seriously. Like that.
Right.
None of us took it that way. You were
Right.
not taking the dig. So I thought nothing of it after that moment. She was the only person that had said it to me. I had apologized. I didn't think of it because I was like, that really was not my intention.
Sure.
When I explain it now to people, I understand that what happened in that moment was intent versus interpretation. Now, here's where people get in trouble. Intent, and I explain it like this with a swinging door. If I swing a door open and you are standing behind that door and the door hits you, it was not my intent to hit you, but the door hit you. So I apologize to you because the door still hit you.
Right. And I'm like, ouch!
Yes.
And you're like, oh shit, I'm
Yes.
so sorry.
I didn't mean for that to hit you. I didn't even know you were standing there. As a comic, I don't know your narrative. I don't know your trauma. I don't know your issue. But if what I said triggered it, I am truly sorry for triggering that in you. But it wasn't my intention. And
I'm willing to learn.
yes. And I was approached, somebody who was very sweet. I wish I could remember his Instagram name. I mean, her Instagram name. Sorry. Her Instagram name. She hit me up and was very upset. Was very upset about this. And we had an open dialogue about it because I didn't shy away. And
Same joke?
Same joke. And I did not blame or take blame off of me. I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. Those were my first words. You are absolutely right. And I apologize. It was not my intention. What can I do? Essentially, I was like, what can I do to better this situation? You know, and then another person from the transgender community reached out and I said the same thing. I said, is there an apology that I can issue that doesn't seem like it's forced or doesn't seem like I need to say this correctly to the community so they understand that I'm a huge supporter of the LGBTQ and I would never, ever, ever intentionally say anything that was meant as a dig or was meant harmfully. So, but I understand how that can be now. Now looking in retrospect, I go, oh, I totally see how somebody could take that. Even if it's to a comic, it'll be like, okay, that's a stretch. Even if it's a stretch to us, I can understand how that could be upsetting.
It's probably the phrasing of when people hear real girl then or real boy, then then it's because that has been said in so many ways where it's like associating that with.
That's been directed at that specific community in so many different ways.
Right.
You know, between having your own transgender bathroom or having a separate bathroom for everybody else. You know what I mean? Where it's like that community's been fighting against that fight. So I couldn't help but speak out against it and be like, I'm so sorry. And so I actually asked one of the transgender women that reached out to me, I said, you know, how can I apologize for this? I told her, I said, I can't do a video because I'm far too sensitive and I will cry. I am a big softie when it comes to stuff like that. And I'm like, I'll cry and then my tears will not seem genuine. They'll seem forced like anybody else who cries during an apology on a video. So I said, if I can issue an apology, what can I say? And, you know, she said, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You seem very sincere. It will come across as sincere if you just write it out and say sorry and tag these people in the post. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. Thank you so much for your help. And I still had people that reached out and were like, that apology was not good enough. That apology.
God damn.
Yeah. And you're just like, and it's just like, this is why when I issued the apology, there were people that also commented, oh, you shouldn't apologize. You're a comic and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're not seeing the point of this. I realize that I'm a comic. I know what you're trying to say is that freedom of speech and yada, yada, yada. But like I said, swinging door, what I said affected somebody. I can't control somebody else's offense, but I can control my reaction to that offense.
And also, it's saying it's freedom of speech and a willing to grow, because it's like you can say, you know, we need to be able to change, and that doesn't mean we're going against freedom of speech. But I mean, I remember when I first learned about, I remember going to go watch someone who was transgender speak, and I went with the intention to ask if they had a penis or a vagina.
Yeah.
And during the talk, the man said, towards the end of it, he gave a very moving, incredible talk. His name was Gunther, I remember, in Boston. And he said, you know, it's astounding. People will ask me in public about my genitals. And I was like, whew, because that was literally what I was coming there to do.
Dodge that bullet.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And and I was able to even go see him speak because I was in school, and that was part of the part of the social environment they created. And it's about going and growing and putting yourself in that position to do that.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, just days before that had happened, there is I have a few transgender fans, and one of them had hit me up and asked me if she should tell her family, and it was
That she's trans?
yeah,
Mm.
it was a conversation I had, and I said that's not a decision for me to make, but she had heard the bit and she knew the bit, and when I issued the apology, she messaged me and was like, "You're a wonderful ally. Thank you for issuing the apology. I never took the bit as that, but it was like, I appreciate you issuing the apology for the community."
Sure.
Like, I was so taken aback by getting messages like that where it was like, oh, I have to address this, And there was, it's very rare that people will, look at my stuff and angrily write me a letter or write me a message. It's very,
Right.
I'm like probably the safest bet as a comic because
Sure.
there's a reason why I don't do anything that's divisive.
Right.
Because I'm not trying to divide people. I want people to come together with comedy. I want people to laugh together. So
Right.
I'm not intentionally divisive things. And for some people, that style works. Or yes, I'm going to say this to poke and prod you and get your reaction. It doesn't work for me. I've always been a let's all hold hands and sing together
Right.
and
Right.
with each other type comic.
Kumbaya. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very kumbaya, and I'm aware of that, and there's no shame in that. It's what I've always been and what I've always wanted to accomplish with comedy is bringing people together. That was another reason why I put the apology out there, because it was like, no, that this is not my intent. I don't want people thinking that I'm separating us.
Right. And you can apologize for something, and then that doesn't mean you're going to apologize for something you don't want to genuinely apologize for.
There's been people that have come at me for other things, and I'm like, okay, well, sorry, no, you're being a little ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah,
Totally.
that's ridiculous that you want me to apologize. Like, again, if it hurts you, so sorry, not my intention, but we're not going to discuss this further.
And it catches your breath when you realize you did something problematic. I remember I posted something and this girl wrote me and she was like, that video it was fat phobic, she said. She was like, because part of the humor comes in watching this guy who's overweight flop around. And at first I felt so defensive about it. I was like, what the? And then I watched it. I was like, interesting point. Didn't even,
Yeah, I had the same reaction. I had the same reaction when, even after that night in Vancouver, I was like, is she right? Is it really that offensive? Is it that bad?
Right. And then you can't, and then it's like, you know how hard this is, what I'm trying to do, and all the people you could come get mad at, and they wouldn't even listen to you. And then I'm over here going over everything you said, and get no credit for that. But that's also not the point. The point is being a better person, and it's not about anybody else. It's about how do I take this, what you said, in this isolated thing, and be better.
And also looking at, a group of individuals, a group of people that have had to deal with that as a judgment or as a statement.
Absolutely.
Forever, and understanding or having somewhat the ability to at least empathize or sympathize and understand. I can't imagine what it's like.
Absolutely.
Walking into a room and knowing that is a question on everybody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
Or getting approached by people, and the number of trans people that have been killed, that have been beat up, like, it just, I grew up in the era of, like, I went to a very progressive high school. So a large percentage of my friends were either bi or gay. They were all out. We had an LGBT club. We had an LGBT, was it LGBTQ back then? I'm not sure, but it was, we had a gay club. We had, like, it was very open. It was very open about that. So
musical theater.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They were all very open. So I was around that community my entire childhood, essentially, and so for somebody to speak up and say, like, hey, this offended me, I took it to heart, specifically because it was somebody from the LGBTQ.
Right.
Specifically.
Right.
I was like, oh, I would never. Like, my brother is openly gay. I would never do that. But that's also not what you want to say to people. Like, hey, my brother's gay is like saying, I have a black friend. I can't be racist. So it's like, you can't say that. It was like,
I know.
You can't use that as an excuse. Because even my brother heard about it. My brother was like, what? And I was like, I know. I'm like, I know, but this is what has to be done because I understand that you have this group of people. Because what it reminded me of, and the point that slipped my mind to make was when I was in high school, it was around the time of heavy gay bashing for anybody. If you were a gay male, if you were a lesbian, even if you were bisexual, you were still like people were getting jumped, people were getting beat up. I mean, I grew up in the Bronx. I went to a progressive high school, but I grew up in the Bronx, man. People outside of that high school found out you were legitimately in danger. So I couldn't help but understand why, with the transgender community, they looked at that as you're allowing people to question whether or not we are considered real males or real females.
Right.
You're promoting that kind of attitude.
Narrative.
You know, and for comics, a lot of us are always like, it was a joke, man. I was just kidding. And we tend to forget that what we say holds weight.
It's also almost disrespectful to comics when we say something's just a joke, because it's like a joke is still words and has meaning in it, elicits a response. So, you know, I do think that it's not something that gives you a pass on everything. I mean, I hope that people see it as like a thing that we can then evolve from. Nothing that you've said someone says necessarily should be taken as the only thing they've ever said.
Yeah. Well, it's like that when Dave Chappelle he did that Q&A after his last special, and they put the
Now, see, I loved his specials, and I was I actually appreciated the way that he was talking about
he showed his ability his knowledge, his insider knowledge of the LGBTQ community.
Yes.
And when he did his Q&A and he's talking about this transgender woman, I believe her name was Daphne, that said to him, in terms of something else, like normalizing something, she said, I wonder why they don't look at you as normalizing transgender people in your act by talking about them like you would anybody else.
That's how I interpreted him too. Yeah. You know, and there's times I've seen something. There was a special I saw recently where I was like, okay, I do not feel like that's normalizing. I feel like that's just like a cheap, like not very evolved, easy pot shot. And I 100% do not think that that's how Dave Chappelle was with it. I thought he was a master.
Well, he carefully crafted things because, I mean, he is a masterful comedian, like truly a GOAT, like honest, one of the most brilliant comics ever. And he looked at the situation and almost predicted how people were going to come at him.
Right.
But when he writes a joke, he already knows what your counter is going to be.
When he did the joke about his wife's gay friend, always like being mad when he gets home, like, hello, David. And he's like, eating my macaroons. Such a good joke.
I mean, he's such a great joke writer in general. And, you know, to the point where he can talk about what a great joke writer he is. Like, he can talk about it. That's how good he is at it. And it was just an interesting point that transgender woman made to him of like, the issue, and I think the issue isn't that we cannot normalize, we can't talk about it. It's the difference between what you said, a cheap shot, and an actual written, eloquent bit that looked at correctly goes, oh, okay, yeah, we can talk about everybody. We should all be talking about each other like we're human beings. But you have to know the things to and not to say.
And recognizing when something's like, okay, I actually don't have firsthand knowledge of that, so I'm going to take a little extra care here to think about what I'm saying.
I need to pull back. And
where can people find you online and follow everything that you're up to?
You can find me at where am I online? At G Brillion on Instagram, which is the one I'm on mostly. Rarely on Facebook, except for the fan page. I have a personal Facebook page, but that's only for like my family and stuff. But I have a fan page of Gina Brillion, and I'm on that constantly. I'm very communicative with people, and they're like, "Is it really you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have a lot of free time." So
I know that's so I know, isn't that interesting? It's so funny because you're like, yeah.
What do you think I do on a Tuesday at noon?
Right. Exactly.
It's really me.
Aziz Ansari actually had a joke about that way back. He was like responding to someone. She was like, "Is it really you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got more free time than you think I do." And you know what I mean? Like,
I start work around 6 p.m.
It's me.
I'm good. And you can check out my podcast, Mess in Progress, which is out on all podcast platforms. And we have a Patreon, which is Patreon for Mess in Progress, where you can see the actual videos. Since we had to start doing Zoom, it was like, okay, well, we'll do some Zoom stuff.
Totally.
How this plays out. Who knows? Who knows how long it will play out for, how long we'll be able to do the Zoom stuff. But what I like about the Zoom stuff is stuff like this, where we don't have to be in the same studio
Yep.
to shoot or to record a podcast. So we had some really awesome guests. Mess in Progress, look for it everywhere. My special, The Floor is Lava, is out on Amazon, as is my first ever special that was produced by Fluffy, is on Amazon as well, called Pacifically Speaking. And you can check out some stuff I have on HBO as well.
What's the name of the HBO one?
Easily Offended is the HBO half hour. I also did season 5 of Entre Nos on HBO, and the Hawk Comedy Festival that's now up on HBO. I did that while pregnant, so go take a peep at Pregnant Gina.
Thank you, Gina. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna hit stop record.
You know what's great about being an animal person is that when you have a pet, when you have an animal, people with kids always try to remind you that you don't have a baby. Right? All your friends with kids are like, oh my God, he's your baby. He's your baby, because you don't have a real one. So sad. And don't get me wrong, I would love to have a baby. I mean, not physically, because it looks uncomfortable. I would love to acquire a baby. Like leave a trail of Skittles or something. Just have one follow me home. Good baby. Because I think they're awesome. I really do. I think my favorite age for kids is that toddler age. Yeah, right? Because they have this cute, they have no filter, first of all. They have no filter. And that's what I connect with. Because I struggle with that. I struggle a lot with not having a filter. But I get in way more trouble than kids do. Kids say whatever they want, and we think it's adorable. I say something wrong, and